Hello, all you weirdos. Jim here. Welcome back to the Weird Science Comics YouTube channel, where we'll talk about the rumor/news that broke. It was bleeding cool. That broke in an article. I will put a link to the article in the show notes here. But it is that Dan Slott will be writing a Superman story at DC in 2025. Now, I know right away that people are going to lose their mind. Dan Slott, not a real liked or likable character. I think that a lot of people like his work, but him himself, especially as a social media presence, he's a little abrasive. He ends up kind of, poking, and not even poking, he blocks everybody. And he blocked me. I mean, look at little old me. I'm nice to everybody, right? Not really, but he blocked me, and it was a joke. I ended up now, again, I don't know why I was joking. I just thought it was funny, but I ended up seeing him tweet out a deal that said the next person who tweets out that I ruined Spider-Man will get blocked immediately. So I went like, I put a contest. And I said, you ruined Spider-Man, LOL. Did I win? I was just joking. I actually like a lot of his Spider-Man stuff. And he blocked me. So I was like, I guess he didn't get the joke. I consider, I think he considers himself a funny guy. I thought it was funny. But again, people would probably say, and I will end up telling you, I'm not going to badmouth Dan Slott in this video. I will tell you how I feel about things, but I'm not going to just sit there and make fun of him or whatnot. But the idea, again, somebody's probably like, he gets so much flack on, coming in. He also gives it out, but he gets it in, that you can't really joke about this. I understand. But there's a lot of people who don't even know that they were blocked by him. You seem to use chain block stuff and whatever. And I think that with all the things going on, maybe that sort of thing needs to change. I know that there's a battle going on. There's two huge sides, and they're going at it with terms and slogans and things like that. But just the idea of everybody should just at least be civil to each other and kind. Or I don't know. You don't know what I'm saying. I should get on Twitter right now. Hashtag I hate hate. Hey, look at me. Look at me. I'm signaling. But with all this stuff going on, again, I don't particularly love Dan Slott as a social media person, but I really don't care. I don't sit there and think about Dan Slott a lot, but I do like some of his books. I do like Spider-Boy a lot. I think it's a really good all ages book. It's fun, but it's not, real important. But I also, on the other hand, I'm really sick of the Spider-Verse stuff that he does. I swear to God, I think that the Spider-Verse has died 17 times in like the last 3 days. So I'm kind of done with that stuff. But I still think that he has something to give. But I think like a Mark Waid, who I actually put this more in line with. A lot of people I saw, they went right to Bendis. Oh, look what Bendis did. Don't do this. Bendis ruined things. I'm looking at it as a Mark Waid thing. Again, another social media problem there and everybody upset and whatever. And if you boycott them, that's fine. That's up to you. But Mark Waid, and now maybe even Jason Aaron, but Mark Waid it was kind of getting really stale at Marvel. And then came over to DC, and it really kind of, pushed his buttons a little, and he got going, and he was doing some good stuff. I still like most of his stuff. And I think that that's what DC is hoping, that Dan Slott might just get reinvigorated. He might get a spark coming to DC, and they say he's going to write Superman. And I think that it is 100% going to be Action Comics. You have that All-Stars initiative. So even if you don't like Dan Slott, you still could check out 3 issues of Action Comics. If you don't want to, you just don't. But it's not like that. I don't know. Now, again, this could change and this could be completely wrong, but I do think that it will be that. And then we'll see where we go, like a Jason Aaron. And I mentioned him a bit. Jason Aaron comes over. I was not liking his Punisher at all. Didn't like his Avengers. Me and my man Brandon, who at that point were reviewing the Avengers on our podcast, were in fights with Tom Brevoort and Jason Aaron himself about how the book didn't have any focus and that it wasn't that good, and they gave us a lot of crap. But I mean, that time I think we were right. But a lot of the things that Jason Aaron, like people say, but his Thor was good and whatever, but that was years ago. So he comes over to DC. I thought that the Action Comics Bizarro story was okay, but that Batman Off-World is great. It's one of my favorite books at DC in the last couple of years. It's just kind of in limbo and not ending at the moment, but that was really good. A lot of people are down in the first issue of Absolute Superman. I'm willing to give that a couple issues before I give it a full out, like, kick it to the curb. I didn't love the first issue because I don't love centering so much on Krypton, as they say. But in the meantime, Dan Slott coming over, maybe this will be some sort of spark. And if it is or if it isn't, there is a funny play, and it's obvious that DC has had so many Marvel writers come in. They had an influx of writers, and I did see a lot of conspiracy theories. They're big nowadays. The idea that Marvel writers were coming in to take down DC from within, which, I mean, the track record of some of them, maybe that's true, like a Teenie Howard. Teenie Howard was not great on, specifically the Catwoman with the 9 Lives story and that craziness, and Harley, which I am a Harley fan. I know some people yell at me about it, but I am a Harley fan. First time I haven't been reading a Harley book in over 10 years was when I dropped Teenie Howard. And that's another thing. Me and my man Matt just recently put up a video about Marvel not hitting with us. And DC is picking it up. And I like this idea of Dan Slott. Whether you like him or not, it is cool that they're trying to grab some people and trying to grab big names. It might be after their prime, maybe, or whatnot, but it's still doing something. And it goes to the fact that a lot of people say, oh, Marvel would be great if they just got better writers. Oh, DC would be killing it if they had great writers. There's not a lot left. Not a lot left willing to work with the big two. If you're a really, really good writer, and I'm not a huge fan of James Tynion, but James Tynion left DC to go and do his own thing because he can make more money and he can end up doing all that. Most of the bigger writers are going to do creative own stuff and they're going to just do what they do. But there's still writers like a Dan Slott or even coming back a Scott Snyder who they do love some of the characters and want to write them. So Dan Slott coming over to do Superman, I don't see the downside of it. If it doesn't work out, what's the fuss or muss of 3 issues? We'll see. But again, this influx of Marvel writers like a Chip Zdarsky on Batman, okay. You end up having Kelly Thompson. I do not like the Birds of Prey, but I did like that first issue of Absolute Wonder Woman. And then you have Leah Williams, so I don't know what the heck's going on. You have that Power Girl that's all over the place. And then I think people have already forgotten about that Gotham City Sirens book that came out weekly, and I mean very weekly. But overall, with this said and done, I don't think that this is a mistake, at least not yet. I will say it is when it is, but at this point, not that I'm like, with bated breath waiting, but I think it's kind of a cool thing that we'll get to see if maybe that can be like light a fire under his butt to actually, start hitting him, doing some new things. And he did do some DC stuff in the past. It's just been that he went exclusive with Marvel. In fact, he had ended up pointing out, and they say it in this article, that in 2013, they approached him. DC approached Dan Slott to do Batman and Superman. Now, in the article, it seems like Rich Johnson, the way he's saying it, is he thinks that what they're saying there is he could do a Batman book or a Superman book. But in 2013, where he says this, they did release a Batman Superman book. It was that whole World's Finest, but just called Batman Superman. And it was by Greg Pak, I believe is how it started. So I think that they approached him then to do that. But unfortunately, I guess he was exclusive with Marvel, ended up doing all this Spider-Man and other stuff too. And again, some of the stuff like the, 2020, the Iron Man 2020 stuff, it just wasn't good. I didn't like his Tony Stark Iron Man. I went back and forth with this Fantastic Four, but at the end, looking back at it, I think that it was pretty bad. It didn't really do much. And like I said, I like Spider-Boy. I did like Superior Spider-Man as it was going, but the Spider-Verse stuff is just getting, it's just getting lame. And when he gets books announced and it's like, hey, Dan Slott's going to be doing the Spider-Verse, people are kind of giggling like that's all he's got. Like he keeps going Spidey, he keeps going back to the well. This will allow him maybe to do something a little different. So again, he's blocked me. I know he's kind of a jerk, but a lot of people are jerks. A lot of people say I'm a jerk, but he gets attacked a lot. So I do take that with a grain of salt, the idea that he is very itchy trigger finger on the whole deal of blocking. But again, somebody, and a lot of people probably have individual things and say, oh, did you forget about that? Like I said, I don't really look into a ton of that stuff, and I just want good books. I'm hoping this might lead to at least a good 3 issues Action Comics. But if he's on a regular run or whatnot, I'm all good for that too. So we'll see what's going on. But overall, I'd love to hear what everybody thinks. Is this something? I don't think there's few, but Matt, who I did the Marvel stuff with, and I did that video, he's a Dan Slott fan, and he seems like he knows when he says that, he's going to be attacked. So it's kind of sad. But, and it's not sad. It's kind of funny, but it's kind of sad. But overall, let me know what you think, if you think this is a good thing, and maybe DC keeps going with other things and grabs other people, and, you know, this will keep going and getting better and better, because at this moment, with the all-in, I'm kind of impressed with DC right now. I kind of like a lot more books than I have in a bit of time, and when I do our DC Comics podcast, if you don't know anything about that, that's in the show notes as well. You can get links to that. We do the show every week. We haven't missed a week in over 10 years. The show used to be 12 hours a week, but we talk about almost all the books. At one point, we talked about them all. So most of the time, I'm reading 99% of DC stuff and even reviewing it. So I think that I can say that it's been a bit down. It was down, but I think this all in, I think it's a cool thing. Some of the creative team changes, I think, are already exciting and working out. So Dan Slott jumping in, I'm all for it. Maybe one day that Jason Aaron Batman Offworld will end. We have one more issue. I want to know what's going on with Punchbot. And in the meantime, yeah, some books are down, some books are up. But I think overall, DC's heading in the right direction and grabbing some bigger names that might be able to, you know, eke out a story or two. I'm all for it. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Hopefully people will keep it civil. Or maybe not. I don't know. You could yell at me, but don't yell at other people. But with that, thanks everybody, and I'll talk to you later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.